His Excellency Ambassador Albert Muchanga, the Commissioner for Economic Development, Trade, Tourism, Industry, and Minerals of the African Union Commission, His Excellency Mr. Stephen Jackson, the United Nations Resident Coordinator in Kenya, Dr. Jide Martins Okeke, the Coordinator, Regional Program for Africa, my friend and brother, Prudence Sebahizi, who is here on behalf of His Excellency Mr. Wamkele Mene, the Secretary General of the AfCFTA Secretariat, those ambassadors who are here, the Deputy Minister from Egypt, directors, colleagues, ladies and gentlemen. On behalf of His Excellency Mr. Clay Vagatete, UN Under-Secretary General and the Executive Secretary of the United Nations Economic Commission for Africa, it's a great honor and pleasure to welcome you all to this inaugural conference on the AfCFTA Implementation Strategies towards an implementation peer learning community here in this beautiful city of Nairobi, Kenya. I would like to express my sincere gratitude to the government and the people of Kenya for hosting this conference, and to our co-organizers, the African Continental Free Trade Area Secretariat and the United Nations Development Program for the spirit of partnership and collegiality they brought to this important work. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, we have been saying, and with good reasons, that the AfCFTA is a game changer for Africa. The AfCFTA holds the promise for our continent to overcome the colonial legacy of small and fragmented markets and replace them with a single market of over 1.4 billion people with a collective GDP close to 3 trillion United States dollars. Through the single continental market, it promises to usher in the AfCFTA. The AfCFTA promises to create the economy of scale to attract large-scale investment in manufacturing, regional value chains, and industrialization. This will foster the much-desired diversification of African economies, creating resilience to withstand economic, health, and food security shocks. Indeed, the AfCFTA is a vision and work program for Africa's integration, prosperity, and transformation. However, I must also add at this point that the realization of this promise is dependent on one important factor, and that is effective, expeditious, and inclusive implementation of the commitments contained in the AfCFTA agreement. Let me also emphasize that the commitments of the AfCFTA agreement are commitments exchanged among sovereign states. As such, only the state parties can implement these commitments. Implementation is primarily a national responsibility. Therefore, governments must also be ready to finance the complementary policies and investments, especially from domestic resources, for its success. It is in appreciation of this fact that our leaders, the heads of state and government of the African Union, decided at their 31st ordinary session held in July 2018 in Nouakchott, Mauritania, to urge member states to take deliberate steps towards implementing the AfCFTA through effective and integrated national and regional implementation strategies, stroke plans, as a matter of priority. Indeed, this summit decision was preceded by a call made by the 51st session of the United Nations Economic Commission for Africa's Conference of African Ministers for Finance, Planning, and Economic Development in May 2018 for African countries to consider developing AfCFTA national implementation strategies in order to expedite the operationalization of the agreement. It was then that the ministers mandated ECA to support the development of such strategies. Following the endorsement of this ministerial decision by the AU heads of state and government in Nouakchott, ECA, through its Africa Trade Policy Center, got to work. Some 4 years later, and with the generous support of the European Union and the government of Canada, I am pleased to report that ECA has supported 45 countries and 5 regional economic communities to develop their AfCFTA implementation strategies. The resulting national and regional strategies are ambitious, forward-looking, and results-oriented documents that aim to guide national governments on how to implement the AfCFTA and unleash the full potential of the AfCFTA for the benefit of all citizens. Each strategy is tailored to the specific needs, priorities, and opportunities of each country. In this sense, the AfCFTA implementation strategies that we have today are highly diverse, yet they also share a lot in common. For example, most of them identify sectors of priority interest in goods and services that may have special potential to benefit from the AfCFTA. Most also identify specific interventions that need to be undertaken by different government agencies at different levels, propose allocation of resources to support implementation, and therefore enhance the readiness and capacity of each country to take advantage of the AfCFTA. This conference provides the first ever opportunity for all our member states to come together, compare their notes, exchange their experiences, and learn from each other's challenges, successes, innovations, best practices, and also accomplishments. It is harvest time for all of us. Your Excellencies, distinguished guests and colleagues, in concluding, allow me to thank our co-organizers again, the AfCFTA Secretariat and UNDP, for their hard work in making this important event happen. I would also like to thank the government of Denmark for generous financial support to this conference. And I am confident that this 3-day conference will be fruitful, productive, and enriching for all of us. I also hope it will mark the beginning of a long-term and dynamic process of mutual learning and cooperation on the process of implementing the AfCFTA agreement. At the conclusion of this conference, let us all aim to identify 3 or 4 key strategic areas of intervention for national governments to prioritize, and also for development partners to provide targeted support. I thank you all for your kind attention.